Welcome to Milk Street at Home. This is the Vermont edition. It's a warm day. We're going to make lunch and a really simple pesto. It's a lemon pesto from Amalfi in Italy on the coast just below Naples. Really simple to make, unusual flavors, but it's one of my favorite dishes. So let's go inside and put it together. So this is a lemon pesto. Most of us think pestos are an herb, usually basil, pine nuts, garlic, maybe Parmesan, of course, and oil. We're doing this with lemon, we're doing it with Parmesan, and then we're also going to be doing it some nuts, but we're not using pine nuts. Pine nuts are expensive. They're cheap in Italy. They also go bad quickly because they have so much oil. So we're going to take these gnarly lemons I got at the store, a country store next door in Vermont, Sherman's, a little Y-shaped peeler. And we're just going to take the peel off. Now this recipe comes from Amalfi, which is on the coast just south of Naples. They grow huge lemons there. Unfortunately, they use them to make limoncello, which is not my favorite liqueur. If you like a hangover, I strongly recommend it. But they have so many of them, they're so large that they got to do something with them. But they also use them in their cooking, and that's why they use them in pesto. Half of these peels are going to be put into the pasta cooking water. So if they're not perfect, it doesn't really matter. Okay, there we go. We're going to divide this in half. Half the strips go into the water here. Turn it on. I like to use a couple of teaspoons of salt. And we're also going to add a teaspoon of sugar. Obviously the peels are bitter. Sweeten that up a little bit. Now you might notice that there's only 2 quarts of water in here. Italians understand that you want the starch to leach out of the pasta into the water, and that creates a great starchy binder for the sauce. So anytime I cook a pound of pasta, I always cook it in 2 quarts of water. That way I reserve some of the water when I'm done cooking, and I add that water back to make the sauce. Depends on the sauce, but most of the time that's what I would do. So we're going to get that heated up, and meanwhile we're going to prep the rest of the ingredients. So this is going to go into the pesto. We need 1 ounce, which is not a lot. So let's set this back to 0. So that's about 1 ounce. Okay, we're going to take that and just cut that into small pieces. It's going to go into a food processor. Put that with the lemons. Now we want to grate a bunch of Parmesan to use that as a finishing. Sprinkle. I like to use these graters. I like a lot. You can get them in different coarseness of grind. I'm going to use a pretty fine grind for this because it's just finishing, but it's nice. You can have them for different things. I think that's going to be enough for just a couple of portions right now. By the way, these knives, this is a Chinese cleaver. It's a little on the heavy side, this one. We make a couple of knives I actually like a little better. I really love this knife because the knife does most of the work. Your hands are away from the blade because it's so high. It's about 4 inches high. And you can get your hands up on the handle. But it's also good because you can use it to clean off the surface. I just find it makes slicing much easier. So we have the Parmesan here with a lemon peel. This is for finishing. Let's check the water. It's still not up to a boil. And let's grab a couple scallions. You don't have to finish this with chives or scallions. You can if you like. I'm gonna leave the greens off for this because I just want a nice little sprinkle. Okay, got that to finish. Let's check the pasta. Okay, it's almost at a boil. When it gets to a boil, we're gonna cook it just for 2 minutes. Then we're gonna reserve or remove the peels. And then we're gonna actually cook the pasta in this water. It's already turning yellow, you can see. It's gonna help flavor not just the pasta, but we're gonna use some of this cooking water, probably a cup or more. So the water itself, which is starchy, is going to help flavor the sauce as well. So it's a twofer. So that's just about done. Let's get everything ready over here. We're also going to need some nuts. So our recipe calls for slivered almonds. I just have whole almonds. By the way, if you get really good almonds, like from Morocco, for example, they're very light and crispy. These are a little more on the chewy side. So there is a big difference between a really nice fresh almond and the stuff that's been sitting around. So as I said, instead of pine nuts, which is what you have if you're in Italy, almonds, you can actually use walnuts or macadamia nuts if you like. Okay, so we're up to a simmer. We'll let that go for a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, let's do the pesto. A little bit of salt, I'll check it later, and a little bit of pepper. And let's add a little bit of sugar too. Again, we had the lemon peel, so maybe half a teaspoon's enough. Let's get this down to sort of a coarse sand. All right, now one of the most important ingredients is the olive oil. This stuff I found in Lebanon. I was in Beirut a couple years ago. Malouf. You can see it's a little cloudy. It's yellow, it's not green. It has a very mellow, fruity taste to it. I'm gonna start with about 1/3 cup. Probably add more as we go along. Let's take out the peel. You can see the water's turned really a nice yellow. I think the secret to using lemon in a dish like this is to balance it with the nuts and the olive oil and the Parmesan. And if you get it just right, it's nice. Now we need the pasta. I'm gonna use a whole pound of pasta. You know, a lot of recipes, including recipes from Milk Street, often call for 12 ounces, which makes no sense whatever to me. I don't know what you do with the other 4 ounces. And we're gonna cook this through. We're not gonna continue cooking the pasta once it comes out. We'll drain it. If you're gonna cook pasta with a sauce, which you do very frequently, you might undercook it by a couple minutes. I'm not a fan of al dente pasta. That means, to me, uncooked on the inside. Italians cook their pasta. So, should be toothsome, but it should not be raw inside. So, okay. Got the olive oil. Okay, that's too dry. I want a little bit more of a sauce here, just a little bit. I'm gonna taste it as well. There we go. Let me just take a taste. Oh boy. That is really, you know, it's not sharp lemon. If I didn't tell you there was lemon here, you could probably figure it out, but it wouldn't hit you upside the head. It would, it's subtle. That's good. Okay. Now we just have to cook the pasta. Take a couple seconds to clean up the kitchen just a bit. Okay, let's check the pasta. You can see it really looks like there's not enough water here. But as I said, that's gonna be great. Another minute. Okay, let's get the colander somewhere. Here we are. So we're almost ready. Let me reserve the water. This is really important. And when you don't have that much water in it to start with, it's a little tricky. I use a smaller container to start. enough. I think we should be good to go. Yep. That's it. Turn off the heat. Now you don't need, please don't rinse it, because you want any starch on the pasta to remain. And you really don't need to get rid of much of the water, because the water is going to be helpful. We're going to add a bunch back anyway. Okay, so we have the pesto. Now that doesn't look like any pesto you've ever made, I'm sure. As I said, you know, you can make pestos with anything. I use parsley, you can make it with arugula, dill, cilantro. I'll start with just a little bit of water here. One of my editors, Jason, actually the editor of Milk Street, was in Rome recently tracking down fettuccine alfredo, which turns out not to have any cream in it, by the way. It's a recipe for mothers make their kids when they're not feeling well. And one of the things we learned was that this tossing does help to emulsify the sauce. You have the starch in the sauce, you have the fat and the cheese and the nuts, and you have the water, and you want that to emulsify. You want that to combine like a salad dressing. So we went to a home cook to get the recipe, and she spent at least a couple minutes tossing, and I think that's important. Again, the heat's off. There's the heat of the pasta, the residual heat of the pan. Now that looks really creamy, doesn't it? And there's no cream, there's no dairy. It's just nuts and cheese and lemon olive oil. I like it on the wet side. I like a little sauce. Okay. So let's get a plate and a fork. Let me just taste it first. Just a little bit of salt. This obviously should be served now. It shouldn't be served 10 minutes from now, so. Just a little more. I like a little finishing salt. I like Maldon salt on the top of almost everything. Cheese, of course, extra cheese. Now, you can use chives or scallions on top. You know, I think I don't want anything green. I like everything off-white in this dish. Because it's just so good as it is. I don't think it needs anything else. So let's see. This is a lemon pesto from Amalfi. Oh, this may be my favorite pasta dish of all time. And it took maybe 15 minutes start to finish, even assembling the ingredients. Oh boy, one more bite. That's it from the Vermont edition of Cooking at Home with Milk Street. Lemon pasta from Amalfi, 15 minutes start to finish. Enjoy.